Nice to meet you. I'm Kohei Ogawa from Japan, Osaka University. So unfortunately, the actual professor is not being here. I think he's somewhere in the world. I don't know where is it. But he can give a talk to you instead of him today. So to do so, I separate his bodies, several parts, and put it to some hand luggage, and then bring it here to give a talk for you. Yeah, we are creating many robots in our laboratory. I think it's more than 10 kinds of android in our labs. So each robot has some specific role, but this robot is very special one, because this robot can play a role of the Professor Ishiguro. So today, he give a talk to you instead of him. So Professor, ready?
Consider the near future, we're going to have this kind of societies, robot societies, where the humanoids and androids are working with the people, and they're providing various services to the people in society. So in order to develop that kind of robot societies, so we have to study about the human likeness. Actually, the Professor Ishiguro, he studied the various robots from a very simple mechanical-looking robot to the very complicated human-like robot. The question was, what is the human likeness? Well, usually we expect cognitive science and neuroscience provide us the ideas about the human likeness, but actually, their focus is not for the human itself. They're focusing on the basic functions of a brain. It's difficult the questions for them. What is human? What is a human likeness? But however, the robotics researchers need to develop the robots, right, based on the hypothesis. Therefore, what we are doing is, we are studying the neuroscience and the cognitive science, and then we made a more meta-level hypothesis to develop the human-like robot, and then we are creating various robots, and then we are checking the robot performance. If a robot became very human-like, that means that we could verify our hypothesis. Once we could verify our hypothesis, that hypothesis can be used in the neuroscience and the cognitive science. So our approach is quite interdisciplinary. The both of us, neuroscientists, cognitive science, and robotic researchers, are interested in human itself. The questions is, what is humans? We are sharing that questions. For understanding the humans and for creating a more human-like robots, the professor started the Android project, and he created this Android in 2004. And as you can see here, the android has a very complicated mechanism for mimicking the human-like movements and human-like facial expressions, right? And then, he studied about the subconscious and reactive movements of humans, okay, and implemented them into the android. Actually, these movements are quite important for representing the human likeness. So usually when we are sitting, we never stop, right? Our bodies and head and eyes, everything's slightly moving. So that is a subconscious movement. However, this is not perfect, right? This is a little bit strange. This looks like a brain damaged person because we do not know the human brain model to control the complicated bodies. So our approach is a very simple approach they used in the pattern generations in robots, right? We just carefully measure the human movement by using a motion capturing system, and we made copies of the movement onto the android. What we are doing now is the neuroscience model to control the complicated bodies in human. We are improving the computer program for controlling this subconscious movement for the android. So this is the interdisciplinary the project between neuroscience and robotics. The same thing happens for the reactive movement. Here, the robot is taking the identical reaction, but this is quite strange, right? If we tap the shoulder so many times, usually we get angry, but androids never get angry. So what we have to do is we have to implement the mental states to the android, and android need to show the changes of emotion. So psychologists, they have hypotheses about the mental states, how the human they control the mental states, and we're gonna change the emotions. So based on that model, so we are trying to improve the human likeness of the robot. So this is also the interdisciplinary approach. So we call that framework the android science. To improve the robot, to develop more human-like robots, it's quite important to work with neuroscientists and cognitive scientists. So we are, verifying and making the hypothesis and verifying each others by creating a robot and by analyzing the human behaviors with the robot. If we carefully choose the situations, well, actually, we can find some practical use of the android. This is the android of storytellers. He's a very famous storyteller in Japan, and he's a national treasure. But the question was how we can keep his professional work. Right? He got old, and he cannot play anymore. But however, with this, the android, we can enjoy his professional storytelling. So this is a very different from the videos, right? We cannot feel the strong human-like presence from the videos, but we can feel the very strong human-like presence from the android. So this is the one of the practical use of android technologies. Another example is here. In a department store, this android is working. The important role of the department store is to show the elegant our future life. Therefore, the mannequin was so human-like in the beginning, but the recent mannequin is not so human-like. If we use the android, and we can go back to the original ideas of mannequins. The android can behave like a humans, and the android can show us the elegant our future life. And when we had exhibitions in department stores, the Shinjuku Takashimaya in Tokyo, it was many people there came to see that, and they were excited so much. So the android went to the Hong Kong. Android became a kind of idol, and android was singing songs in the shopping mall in Hong Kong, was providing us the information about the shopping mall, and that was also the very practical role of the android, of the current android. So this is a videos where the android is singing songs like the singers, idol singers. And this android, is in the Japanese department store, the Takashimaya again. But the role of the android was the introducing the activities of department stores. And actually, she was recommending some clothes and some items in the department stores. Actually, we could, we had the unique the system to have a conversation with this android. The most difficult technologies for this kind of robot is voice recognition, we think. And for example, the department store is quite noisy, right? Therefore, we cannot use the voice recognition function. So, for example, for the smartphones, right? Many people are using the Siri, for example. But however, Siri never works in a department store. It's so noisy. Right? Therefore, we have prepared the tablet computers and prepared the a kind of a typical sentences as questions for the Android in the department stores. And the visitor, and they could choose the questions, and they could touch to the tablet computers, and the computer read it, by speaking, and then the Android, answer back to the questions. So by using a tablet computers, we could have a feeling of a real conversations. Then, the people could become the friend of the Android, and the people they wanted have the same clothes as the Android, and then we consider that probably the Android can have a more important role in the department stores. And here, actually, the Android is selling the clothes, theaters, right? And by using tablet computers, right? And we did this experiment around 2 weeks, and the Android could sell the many clothes, right? But not like the human stuff. Maybe just half of the human stuff, half number of the clothes the human stuff sold. However, the Android could have a conversation with the many peoples. The number was the double of the human staff. Right? The usual human staff can handle just 20 people every day, but the Android could handle the more than 40. But the video shows the autonomous Android. If we want, by combining the chatbot, automated chatbot, the computer control the chat system, the Android can have a kind of autonomous intelligence to talk with the visitors, right? But and Android cannot have logical conversations. This is the idea is to gather the huge amount of conversational patterns from the net, and then Android is chatting with the visitors. The conversation is still very simple, but however Android can have a kind of low-level intelligence. So if we implement the same computer program into the Android and robots, right? So the guys are talking forever. So that is quite the interesting. However, if we expect to have a more logical conversation with Android, so honestly speaking, we cannot. So we cannot have the human-like the conversations with the Android. So what we can do is to develop the teleoperated functions for the Android. Actually, we have developed the teleoperated Android called Geminoid. So this is myself, right? So operator in this case is a professor. The professor is watching the two monitors and they're talking something, and the computer is analyzing the professor's voice and making the lip movement, and the cameras on the computers is tracking the professor's head movement and sending it to the Geminoid. So interesting the phenomenon for this system is both the visitors and operators can adapt to the Geminoids. And especially for the operators, the operator can easily adapt to the Geminoid, and they accept the Geminoid body as his or her own bodies. The further, right, professor is not the best operator. Everybody can easily operate the robot and can easily adapt to the Geminoid, especially for the women. Okay. Here, newscaster is operating the professor's Geminoid, okay, and the interacting with the real professors. So, actually, she is accepting, recognizing the Geminoid body as her own bodies. Therefore, as you can see here, if the professor touched to the bodies, Geminoid bodies, right, operators and newscaster could have a feeling to be touched, right? So this is the quite interesting. But this means that we can transmit the human presence to the distant place by using a Geminoid. If we want, we can have this kind of meetings by using a Geminoid. This is much better than the videos, right? This is so realistic. That we can feel the people can feel the human-like presence from the Geminoid. And if we want, we can have a conference talk, right? I'm giving a conference talk, right? Recently, often. Okay. If I'm in a cafe, right? Of course, the someone is teleoperating me from Japan by internet, right? But the visual in a cafe, the cafeterias, they could enjoy the talk with me. I want to introduce another totally different approach. So far, I have introduced the very human-like robot, but on the other hand, we can consider to use the minimal design of human, right? When we are talking with humans, usually we use the brain model to recognize the person. Okay, that model consists of multiple modalities and quite strong. Right. The question is how we can activate that model, right, and how we interact with another persons by using our imaginations. Well, in order to answer that question, so we have created this minimal design robots, minimal design android. So it looks like humans, but we cannot tell the age and genders. Right? It's quite neutral design. So once we hear the voice from the terrenoid, we call that this minimal design the terrenoid. So by hearing the voice, we can have an imagination about the speakers. Then we can mentally project that imagination onto this terrenoid, right? Actually, the elderlies like to talk with the terrenoid, and probably this is much better than the Geminoid for elderlies. So no difference among countries in Japan and for example in Europe. So everybody loves to talk with the terrenoid, especially for the elderlies. Therefore, now we are running the project in Denmark. Denmark is a very famous country with top-class welfare system, and they have many elderlies living alone, and and the elderlies, looking for some conversation partners. So we are thinking that the terrenoid they can be a partners for the conversations for the elderlies living alone. We consider that, right? So we can apply the same idea to the smartphones. If we made totally different types of a smartphone that looks like a human, we consider that we can have a much better smartphone that can easily operate, can easily talk to it, right? So we call that new smartphone is L-Foid. So this is a 3D a prototype of 3Gs, and this is how to use it, right? In a near future, I think we're gonna see this kind of the scene. And well, the funny thing is when we released that new smartphones, we got a message from the museum for clay figures, ancient clay figures, and actually there is almost same design for the ancient clay figures. It was made 5,000 years ago. And the people consider that clay figure is communicators with the person passed away. So we are sharing same ideas, right? The design is good for the communicators or mobile phones. So by creating a very human-like robot and by creating the minimal design of humans, we are studying what human is and what human heart and mind is and what human love is. So this is our work. Thank you for your attention.